My name is Daryl Isip. I'm one of the program directors here at Barclays. I'm within the UK retail bank, now called the Personal and Commercial Bank. Those of you that want to be bored about all those different acronyms. And I wear two hats here. One hat is all around delivery and delivering large programs. And the other hat I wear is all around adoption of PMI and how do we kind of climb the PMI journey really internally at Barclays to kind of showcase and kind of conform to the PMI ideals and methodologies within Barclays. So it's really important for us to continue these events. PMI is a very close strategic partner of ours, and we want to continue hosting these events here at Barclays. So really pleased you guys are here. I just want to kind of see, why are you guys here? What's your main purpose here? Anyone want to shout out, raise their hands? And you guys thought you were just going to be here and just sit down the whole night, right? I mean, yes, thank you.
I'm interested to hear about the accessibility that you've got and what you're considering when you're implementing a system about people that might have short-sightedness or mobility issues.
Okay, did everyone hear that? Yeah? Okay, perfect. We'll definitely cover that. We've got two of the leading experts here in the UK. I'm really pleased. So we'll introduce them in a second. Anything else that anyone wants to discuss tonight, or any other reasons why you guys were here? Why you guys are here? You all want one PDU, right? I get that. I get that. Okay. So two reasons why I think today is very exciting. Firstly, I talked about the PMI partnership that we have here at Barclays. Our methodology for delivering programs is fully based on PMI, and we expect all of our project managers actually to have PMI certification after the first year they join. So that's how important PMI is to us. Second, and more importantly, is tonight is all about accessibility and inclusion. And what you'll hear about today is how we as Barclays are going to turn our bank into the most accessible and inclusive bank in the world. It's really important for us. You'll hear about ideas how accessibility is not an afterthought. It's part of how we deliver programs. It's at the heart of everything we do. And it's sponsored all the way at the top. And I'll briefly tell you a quick story about one of the programs I just finished running. It's all about a mobile web chat app. And those of you who are Barclays customers, you may have Barclays mobile banking on your phones. And inside that mobile banking app, there's actually a web chat application. You can actually WhatsApp or iMessage your agents. And we initially were going to do that for our more younger generation because they actually don't like to talk on phones anymore. They like to message their agents. But what we quickly found is this was a new channel for our customers who don't have either the confidence to speak on the phone or actually, don't have a good comprehension of English. Actually, so it's actually a project that was able to touch all of our customers, not just the mass market. And so you'll hear some examples about that later. All right, I'll quickly go through the agenda. So we've got Townsend. I'll introduce her in a second. She's going to talk about the PM responsibilities and opportunities for accessibility. So those of you who are within Barclays or even outside of Barclays, you can hear about what we're actually starting to do. Christopherson is going to talk about the next generation of technology for accessibility. It's really exciting, and he has some really cool gadgets that he's going to show us. And then we're going to have a panel. So Robin, Kathryn, and myself are going to have a panel. This is where I want you guys all to start thinking about some questions. Don't be shy. Ask many questions. We'll have roving mics for everyone to ask questions. Any questions game for that. And then Edmund's going to come up to talk about the PMI, some cool events that are coming up within the PMI, and of course the code for the PDUs that I know you're all waiting for. And then finally, we're going to have some networking opportunities and drinks outside. There is an accessibility show and tell outside if you guys haven't been out there. Some really cool gadgets out there to really get a feel for what it really means to be blind, for example, because actually being blind is it's not like you're blind and not blind. There's different shades of blind, or different shades of being hard of hearing, for example. So some opportunities to try some of those gadgets out and feel it for yourself. All right, so in terms of speakers, you've heard about me. I'll talk about Robin in a second, but I've got the great opportunity to introduce Kathryn Townsend. Kathryn is a strategic transformation leader within Barclays Retail. She leads the accessibility program and was responsible for the early adoption of inclusive design standards at Barclays. And tonight, she'll be talking to us about the responsibilities and opportunities presented by accessibility and inclusion design for project managers. I've had the great opportunity to work with Kathryn for the past couple of years. She's a pleasure to work with and definitely the go-to fountain of knowledge for accessibility internally at Barclays. So pleased to welcome Kathryn Townsend.
Thank you, Daryl. Wow. Welcome, everybody. So we've got a really great number of non-Barclays people here, which is fantastic. I'm interested just to break that down a little bit further. So who is construction PM in the room? Okay, only 3? Wow. Technology or digital? Okay. Financial products or services? Telephony? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, interesting breakdown. So I'm going to keep this quite high level because obviously you could have a whole day to talk about each of the requirements and opportunities around accessibility, if not more, in each of your areas. But I want to keep it really high level and share part of the journey that Barclays has been on because we've sort of approached this a couple of years ago. And my background's actually branch design. Sorry, can everyone see me? My background is actually branch design. We have quite a good history of creating accessible spaces. So we used to had a branch refurbishment program. Is it not working? Oh, okay. A branch refurbishment program that was going to go out and touch every one of our 1,600 branches in the UK. But the issue with that is that we've got some pretty old branches. Some hadn't been touched for about 20 years, and they were quite inaccessible. So it was part of our mission to make sure that we walked away from a branch refurbishment, leaving the branch more accessible than we found it. So about 98.5% of our branches are now step-free, which is fantastic. The remaining 1.5% are listed buildings. So we struggle to do that from a listed building and consent perspective. But that gave us like a really great branch experience and a physical experience for our customers. But we'd never stopped to think about the other channels. What about digital? What about telephony? What about mobile? How inclusive or accessible are they? The truth is, we'd never thought about it. So a couple of years ago, myself and a colleague came into head office, came off that programme and started to think about inclusive design. How could we get the rest of the business thinking the way that we had done and had great success in our branch network from a very physical perspective? And that's been a real journey, and it's great that we're all here now because it shows that we've actually built momentum. The fact that I'm sitting here and this is my day job is testament to the effort and the sort of the backing that I've got from the business, which is great. A lot of organisations still consider this as an add-on. Oh, it's for HR or diversity and inclusion or an employee network. For us, the mindset shift has been that this is core business, and we look out for opportunities to break down barriers wherever we can find them. So that's sort of a bit of background. So I would challenge you all, first of all, to stop thinking about disability with a capital D. Stop thinking about the people that consider themselves disabled, because actually most people people don't like to be put in a box. And actually, once you start shifting that thinking away from disability in that real sort of black and white way and just about impairments and access issues, you will really start to change your way of thinking. Because, like I said, the minority of people would probably ever think of themselves as disabled, even people who we might think have got severe disabilities, but actually the likelihood of impairment is quite high. And we live in an ageing population, so that means for the first time in history, we've got more older people than we do younger people, and the propensity for impairments goes up with age. So within normal population, between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 people has some form of disability or impairment. You might find that quite surprising. Roughly around 11 million people in the UK. As soon as we start getting older, over 75, that stats drops to 1 in 2. And most people actually acquire impairments or disabilities. You're not born with them. The international symbol, you know, the wheelchair user that you think of, that's only 6% of people with disabilities. Actually, you know, that very physical, identifiable way that we think about disability is the minority. Most are hidden or invisible. Hearing impairments, mental health issues, dyslexia, visual impairments, the list goes on, Alzheimer's, dementia. Once you get past that, also start to consider the temporary access issues. Who's ever broken a limb? Yeah, we've even got one in the audience. Thank you for being case in point. She's not a stooge, by the way. Suddenly you're having to think about your access issues a bit differently. How can I carry these things? How can I get around? How can I do what I need to do? anybody who's been pregnant also suddenly starts to reconsider their access issues and needs and their environment. Also, long-term illnesses, critical illness, obviously something that's very prevalent nowadays, cancer, that kind of thing. What kind of effect does that have on your day-to-day access, going about your day-to-day life? So the reason I'm sort of labouring this point is that we need to start thinking that it's the minority. Actually, this is all around us. And when you also consider the people who are affected by disability because it's close to their family, or they might be a carer, either a formal or informal care arrangements, the people who need to start thinking about access issues goes up even higher. About 1 in 3 people are affected by disability, either themselves or through by caring for another individual. And what we know is that the people with impairments or access issues actually become excluded down the chain here from a lot of independent activities and day-to-day life, where businesses or people within society have not included and thought about accessibility. So that's the business case, basically. It affects a lot of us. And also, inclusive design is good design. Who doesn't benefit from the old kettle here that you can plonk down onto the base without having to fumble for the cord, whether it's the small things or the branches or premises. Everybody benefits from getting into the branch with a ramp or a shop with a ramp, not just the wheelchair user, the person with a buggy or me with my wheelie case. You know, these are the additional benefits of inclusive design and inclusive thinking. So, as I said, you know, this is cross-sector. This doesn't matter what type of project manager you are. There are opportunities for inclusive design and accessibility everywhere, whether you're looking at written training and how you deliver that, websites, mobile apps, everything has the opportunity to be more inclusive if we just think about it in a different way. And there might even be some surprise benefits in doing that. Darryl touched on a project, this instant messaging, and I've actually been working with the team today to produce the comms. So the instant messaging app is being delivered for our deaf customers. And I'm so excited because it is for the first time breaking down those historical barriers and providing on-the-go access to Barclays like anybody else that's had access to telephone banking previously. And telephone banking has been around for decades. But we've just excluded deaf customers. Unless you had text relay, which is a clunky sort of device that puts a BT operator between you and the organisation, actually you're kind of screwed. If you need to contact Barclays, the branch is closed, what do? You can't give the phone to your sister or your mum, because if we find out it's not you who we're dealing with, we'll terminate the call for security reasons. So we've kind of got all of these legacy issues that now, thanks to modern technology, we can start to break down. So there are opportunities all around. I would challenge you. A lot of people say, oh no, I can't afford to, I don't have cost within my budget to add on these additional requirements. You're going to extend my timelines, you're going to increase my costs. Actually, shift that thinking around. You can't afford not to. We know that the cost of change pyramid here, which is reflected, shows the sooner you can adopt an inclusive design approach, the cheaper it is. And in fact, it's been proven that by building accessibility from the start, it's only something like a 0.2% incremental cost on the project, rather than many hundreds of % increase by doing expensive retrofits at the end of the project. So just shift that thinking, get people on board as early as you possibly can, and keep the costs down. There are many examples which you can cite where companies have had to perform expensive retrofits because they didn't think of it, and actually they also nearly end up in the courtroom as well, because obviously we have the Equality Act to ensure under the legal obligation that we do this as well. But we're trying to shift our thinking from the legal tick-the-box type approach to the opportunity, of which there are many opportunities here. And actually it's a great news story. A lot of things that people I hear, especially on social media as well, is you know, why do you bother? Disabled people, you know, they're not adding a value in the same way as non-disabled people to society. They don't have money to spend. What's the point in investing? Well, that, frankly, is, apart from being really offensive, just wholly untrue. The estimated purple pound, they call it, is approximately £80 billion a year in spend. So there's the commercial driver as well that you can all factor into your business cases on this journey, as well as being the right thing to do and keeping out of jail. So for those of you who suggest that actually I still can't afford it, I've got the the budget that I've got, what do I do? For us, the number one thing has been stakeholder buy-in. I'm showing the picture here, and on the left is Ashok Vaswani, our Chief Exec of Personal and Corporate Banking, and he's on the board, and he's our exec sponsor in charge of disability, and he's a driving force behind what we do. So sometimes, it's only right, well, we only end up sort of escalating to our executive sponsors, such as Ashok, if you need to get things done. Not everybody is, is on board as Daryl. We're definitely still on a journey trying to raise awareness internally. People are still worried about their budgets, and sometimes you have to just go and knock on the door of your exec sponsor. But if you can find that person and get them on board, it'll be a hell of a lot easier. So that is my one piece of advice. Find your senior stakeholders on the project or in business and get them on board with what you're trying to do. Bring out some examples of why this makes great business sense, and keep it really simple. A lot of people, they're just kind of, they like things to be kept really simple. Think of a clear example that you can share, something that's resonated with you, and you'll deliver that passionately and have them on board, and it will make a big difference. Apologies, this slide's not very clear, but this is a screen grab of our internal IT accessibility, if I can say it, IT accessibility standards. One of the other comments I get quite a lot is, okay, I'm on board, I get it, but what do I need to do? I'm a project manager, I don't have time to go off and find out what I need to do, just help me understand it, which is fine if you're building a website. There are very clear accessibility standards which help people know how to code in the right way so that their websites can be used with screen readers. But what about when it's not a website? How do you start to gather those requirements for your project? Well, you need to ask. You do need to ask, and sometimes you need to ask externally, sometimes you need to ask consultants and experts, but actually getting those requirements at the start from the right people who know is the way that you build things in the right way. This is a simple sort of flow chart that I created just to share with you a real life example in Barclays that for us has had a great impact. So there's some devices rolling out in branches at the moment called ASDs, or assisted service devices. They're like a glorified ATM basically, but they are replacing some of the traditional counter formats. And Wincor, one of our, and I shouldn't name names, should I? Our suppliers were the people we went to source these machines, and they went, yeah, we've got a machine, that's great, here you go. We looked at that machine and went, oh, no, this isn't accessible. How does a wheelchair user access this machine? How does somebody who's of short stature use this machine easily? What about somebody with dexterity issues, that kind of thing? They were trying to sell us something off the shelf. We pushed back and said, no, if this is going to come into our branches and replace face-to-face counter or low-level counter, it's got to be the most accessible design. And we know it's going to delay timescales, and we know it is going to cost more, but we have to get the right thing. And we pushed back and pushed back and pushed back with our suppliers. We took our ergonomists and accessibility consultants out to their depot in Germany and worked with them to create the right solution. And now we have one of the most accessible ATMs out there from a physical perspective. But if we just accepted that what they told us, oh no, you can't do it, we don't have that device, we wouldn't be where we are now. So I would say second piece of advice really is to push on suppliers. They are lazy. People say, no, we haven't got what you want, but actually keep pushing and you will get a better outcome. So suppliers can really help if you put pressure on them, and we need to, as an industry, put more pressure on suppliers and not just accept status quo. But there are different types of expertise that you can call on. People, like I mentioned, ergonomists, who can help with the physical aspects. Sometimes you need technical expertise as well, or even experiential. We do a lot of work with customer testing, so getting real disabled customers in through our doors, getting them to kick the tyres on something before it goes live. It's the best way to get a further insight, and you need to make sure that that's iterative throughout the design process. I think I've actually got something here just to demonstrate that. Key points throughout your project, no matter I mean, you'd hopefully all be doing this anyway, user testing potentially, but make sure that when you're choosing your testers, you're broadening your view, you're getting in a diverse range of customers or the general public, considering impairments, considering age and different demographics to be really inclusive. So just to close up on this slide before I just share one other thing for you, there really are opportunities. It shouldn't be seen as a burden. We've talked about a few examples where this has really revolutionised the experience for our customers. We've won industry awards. We're getting praise from customers as well to show that what we're doing really has an impact. It can de-risk your project, increases the uptake of the service, something I mentioned actually in the write-up article that went out recently. You don't build a building and then, lock the door to stop people coming in. But why do we do that across all of our other channels? Why do you want to prevent the very people who you've built your project for from accessing it? You don't. You want it to have as broad appeal as possible. So just consider that throughout. It can reduce complaints, get good PR, strengthens the business case. And if anybody here have we got any project manager consultants? So in the room? Yeah, a couple. I challenge you to actually take that back and add it as a value add to clients. Any clients that you're working with, there's, most consultancies have got a health and safety team now who can go and subcontract work out. Not many have got an accessibility team. And the way that legislation is going, we're only going to see more and more of a focus on this. So I think project managers could really be ahead of the curve. And we're starting to actually use it as a value add to our corporate client relationships in Barclays because, hey, there's something here and it's something that helps the business case. So something just to think about. I know that was a very, very whistle-stop tour of our journey here, but there's one other thing I just want to share with you. I'm going to just bring in my colleague Fiona Morden, who's an external diversity and inclusion consultant and has been with us on this journey, and another colleague, Virginia. Virginia is wearing what we call BESS. It's the Barclays Elderly Simulation Suit. Have I got that right, Fiona? Yeah. I will just let Fiona introduce this because she needs the mic and we're running short on mics, but this is just to bring it to life a little.
Thank you, Kat, very much. And I'll just turn around so that you can all see Virginia in all her glory, and also welcome Bess. So Bess, as Kat said, Barclays Elderly Simulation Suit, which is designed to give people an insight and a sense of what the practical considerations of a disability might mean to you if you're designing or delivering a service or a product. We like to say, it's very careful actually not to say that it's like you understand what it's like to live with a disability, because anyone that has got a disability or is close to someone that has recognises that that's something that is day in, day out. Virginia can take off Bess soon, but when we'll talk to Virginia in a moment about the experiences that she's got. But this does give you at least an understanding of why it might be important to think about things like the contrast or the font size in a piece of print, or the buttons on something practical like a BlackBerry. But before I carry on talking, Virginia has very kindly been wearing this for the last hour or so. And you can see that all the component parts are there designed to perhaps restrict mobility in terms of things like her neck, or indeed the weighting of the vest piece here and the arms. Again, your muscles don't necessarily work so well, perhaps as you become older. So this suit has given Virginia a moment to think about the importance of thinking about accessibility when she's running projects. So let's just take a moment to think about what's been your observations, Virginia, as you've been wearing this?
I think initially you feel very isolated. Your vision is very restricted. You can't hear when I was sitting at the back. You feel, I don't know what quite the word is, very different to everybody else. Right. Very, almost, you just don't want to be this person. I think for me the biggest thing is when you get an illness, for example, you know it's only going to be for a short period. This is forever, isn't it? Likely to get worse. So the fact when you're trying to bend down or move in any way, you are so restricted, and you feel that the best thing to do is perhaps not attempt to do that.
We had
because
this
it's too much
conversation.
effort.
Yeah, we were talking about some of the practical manifestations of this, and we were talking that Virginia's been working on a project for encouraging more online digital usage. And when I said, well, what's this making you think about? What did you then reply?
I said, well, you know, what you'd have to do is think about something maybe that was voice interactive rather than trying to use your fingers, because clearly I can't even operate a BlackBerry, never mind a keyboard.
What would make it easier on something like a BlackBerry then for you?
Something very big keys, so the chances of me missing a key wouldn't happen, preferably with numbers programmed in, so I didn't have to, I only need to do as minimum keystrokes as possible, really.
And if all those things weren't there, you just said you would probably not bother?
You wouldn't, because you just know, or you'd be dependent on somebody else, and that's kind of the worst thing, really. For me, like most of us, we're very independent. The last thing you want to do is to have to get somebody to help you get up, like you did with me, pass your things, do things for you, because they're taking away all your independence completely.
And that's something, I guess, quite sobering for all of us to think about. And actually, therefore, in the context of the work that you all do, thinking about the output of your product or service, how can you enable independence? And for you, Virginia, because you're a project manager here at Barclays, aren't you? What's it making you think about in relation to your day job as a project manager?
It's kind of making me think, rather than, I think we talked about, I would only normally think about it if I was doing a specific project that was delivering accessibility. I think now what I tend to think about is, how can I make it accessible even though that isn't the main goal of the project, really?
So even if the client hasn't given you that as a brief, you might be in a better position now to challenge the client. Yes, which sounds like the right result, actually. I think we're,
and I should have just introduced that. So the reason that we've invested in this is because we've been using it to bring the internal business and internal stakeholders on the journey. How this all sort of started about 18 months ago, we had an event with 120 senior leaders across the retail bank, and Darryl, in fact, was there and wore this himself, and we got some other senior stakeholders to wear it and interact with some of the disabled customers on roundtable discussions, and had this great event to really just hit home what we were trying to do. And now we use it with some colleagues, just either to product test some bits and pieces or just to raise general awareness, and it has a great effect, and we use it at sort of events like this. But as Darryl mentioned, there are some smaller bits that we'll happily show you at the breakout session, but hopefully you found that interesting, and I'll happily take your questions later on. And thank you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathryn, and thank you, Ginny, for the demonstration. Really appreciate it. That was a really good overview. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to wear some of those, that outfit, you probably haven't because it's a Barclays outfit. But there's many activities here that you can use. I mean, there's even gloves you can wear. There's debit cards that you can see, things like that. So it's really great opportunity. I forgot to mention at the beginning is we do have a hashtag here for those of you who want to tweet your thoughts, comments, questions. I'll be checking the feed as well during the day or during the evening, so please tweet us at Barclays PMI. It's a pretty simple hashtag. So if you're on Twitter, please do that. We'd love to get your feedback during the event. All right, our next speaker is Robin Christopherson. And Robin, I mentioned earlier, is really the go-to individual across the globe about accessibility. And really anytime you talk about accessibility, his name comes up. I did a quick Google search on him earlier, and it's fascinating to see what you see on there. A quick overview is Robin is one of the leading UK inclusive tech experts for a UK-based charity called AbilityNet. So take a look at that if you have any questions. To help change the lives of disabled people by helping them use digital technology at work, at home, and in education. Being blind himself, he provides us with an excellent first-hand example of the way we can all make our projects and products easy to use for all of our customers and users if we simply think about design with an eye for inclusion. Robin will be talking about, and more importantly, demonstrating a range of inclusive technologies that have the power to change and even transforms lives, regardless of their ability. Will your projects be part of everyone's technology future? Well, let's hear from Robin, and he'll tell us more about it. Let's have a round of applause.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening. Can everyone hear me all right? Yeah. Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Daryl. That was a great introduction. So, let me just check. Okay, great. So, yeah, my name's Christopherson, and AbilityNet has done a lot of work with Barclays for well over half a decade now. And technology is a very, very exciting, empowering, and potentially inclusive area. And I'm going to hopefully give you a flavour of some of that sort of transformative potential that technology has over the next half an hour. Kathryn did a fantastic job, really tough act to follow, on covering the business case for accessibility. And hopefully you're beginning to see that, you know, regardless of whether it's mentioned in the brief, in your particular project, that you will consider accessibility or inclusive design, because it really is a game changer for so many people. The PMOK guide defines a project as a temporary endeavour undertaken to create a unique product or service. So the bit that I would want to concentrate on there is unique, because if you do consider accessibility, if you do think about inclusion, then your product will be unique and you will be able to leverage that ROI, that business case, because your competitors won't be. You know, Barclays has really trailblazed in this area with their 3,500 talking ATMs. You know, they are reaping the benefits, the ROI on accessibility. And if you build it into your thinking right from the inception of any project, whatever it is, then you get that 0.2% increase in cost. Sometimes it's a lot more if you don't think about it early enough in the project. So, which side's the screen on? I have a habit of looking. It's behind you. Okay, so I can look either way, because I have the habit of looking over my shoulder, and if I'm looking the wrong way, then I look like a bit of an idiot. So, great. So you might have thought, where's my guide dog? Because I did have a guide dog earlier. He's new, and he's a bit of a twit, really. So, yeah, even that little ripple there, he would have jumped up and like, what's going on? What's going on? So he's been taken away. So that's the reason, not because people are always coming up to us saying, you're gorgeous, and they're always talking about Archie, not me. So it's because he's not very good with crowds at the moment, but we're working on it. So yes, I'm going to talk about technology and its potential. And really, you know, from a personal perspective, I'll kind of cover that, but more broadly, talking about impairments, the full range of impairments as well. So way back in the 80s, we've got here a standard desktop. Oh, sorry, if you could put up with having this nice lady talking to me at the front here. I bet you guys wish your computer had this nice sort of voice. You'll be hearing it from time to time, because we're going to be showing stuff with audio, you know, video clips and that sort of thing. And I'll plug in the external audio, so you're bound to hear the lady from time to time. Except, where's the audio? Okay, oh, there it is. Okay, great. Great, so way back in the 80s, when, you know, with the advent of the personal computer, the PC, the desktop computer, everything changed for people with disabilities and for everybody else as well. But, you know, what was increasing people's options when it came to employment and education and that sort of thing. You know, now 90% of jobs in the UK involve a computer of some shape or form. But back then, you know, it was really opening doors for people, but no one more so than people with disabilities. So for me, I was really lucky. It coincided with when I was doing my education and going to university. I had a laptop that was the size of a small suitcase with this kind of robotic talking voice. But nevertheless, you know, it really, really helped, because it had that potential to be inclusive. Sorry, it's just falling off here. And to help me with, you know, the particular requirements that I had. So here we've got the standard, you know, monitor, keyboard, mouse, tower. And all of these things are optional. They all have choices. They all give you different methods in which you can sort of operate this device, if different ways of inputting and outputting information. So the screen there, you know, screens are all sizes now, from sort of 200-inch screens for home theatre right down to screens that, you know, you can wear on your wrist, or heads-up displays. We're going to look at wearables a little bit later on. So screens are all different shapes and sizes, or perhaps you don't use a screen. Someone like myself, you know, can't see the screen, so I rely on speech output. Other people might temporarily not be able to use the screen because they're driving, for example. And Kathryn talked earlier about not thinking about disability with a capital D. And I'll talk in a moment about mobile computing and how actually we do need to think about everybody as potentially being temporarily disabled. But there are lots of instances where, having options and the fact that technology can give you options, you can have speech output, you might not be able to use a keyboard like this, so you'd need to use voice recognition, or maybe you want to use an on-screen keyboard where you can change the size or the color contrast or the response of the keyboard, etc. The mouse, I can't see the arrow on the screen. Other people might have discomfort when they're using a mouse. They might need to use a more ergonomic mouse, for example. And the tower, where is the computer these days? Is it built into the screen? Is it in your pocket connected via Bluetooth? Is it halfway across the world and you're just using a dumb terminal? So all of these things have lots of different choices, and it's this flexibility, it's this potential for technology to be inclusive, to be all-embracing, that was the real revolution.
Slide 3, and adaptability. 3 vertical bar ability mass presentation dash next gen tech vertical bar March 2004. Stephen Hawking.
And there's no more better example of somebody who has benefited from technology, and as a result, the world has benefited from his input, his contribution, than someone that we assessed relatively early on in AbilityNet's existence, Professor Stephen Hawking. And he has technology that helps him communicate, helps him write his books, his scientific papers, etc. And he's got that voice that we all know. And obviously there are more natural sounding, sexier sounding voices, not that he would want to sound sexy necessarily, but he's obviously stuck with that old Dynavox synthesizer because we've all got the right to have a unique voice, and everybody knows that that's what he sounds like, and so that's his voice, so he's sticking to it. So technology helps people who have very significant difficulties, and your projects, if you make them inclusive, and digital projects in particular, Kathryn talked about physical premises, and that can be a challenge, and there can be expense involved there. But digital projects, if you think about doing them according to the best practice guidelines that Barclays have their own internal ones, there are obviously global standards when it comes to web, mobile best practice guidelines, etc. If you follow those, then you're going to be helping everybody, and you're going to be enabling some customers to be able to interact and benefit from your services who otherwise would be locked out.
Slide 4. Screenshot from iPhone show.
And then the next big revolution that came along a few years ago now was the smartphone revolution. And by the way, I'm not going to do too many more slides. We're going to be looking at demos and video clips, etc., a little bit later on. And I will tweet links to all the videos and apps that I'm going to talk about using that hashtag. So don't worry about wondering where all of these are coming from. And because of time constraints, I won't kind of show probably each video in its full extent as well. So something like we've got here, a smartphone, an iPhone in this case, and it has a lot of accessibility, a lot of inclusion built in. We've got high contrast here. You've got magnification built in. You've got speech output built in, which we'll look at in a moment. And all of these make the potential of these devices, of this enormous project, and any app that you create, he wants to slide off, is a sort of a mini project running on this potentially very inclusive platform, makes it accessible for the broadest range of people. And I'm going to quickly demonstrate. So this is my phone, and I'm going to plug in.
Tuesday, the 8th of July. Unlock.
Okay, so I've got a nice Australian lady,
Button.
but I'll give you a
Language.
British English.
I'll give you a nice British chap who's a lot slower.
Dropbox.
So I can just roam my finger around the screen.
Drop contacts. Photography folder. 6 apps. 1 new item. Double tap to open.
So it's told me I'm on the photography folder. There are 6 apps in there. There's 1 new item. There's a badge for something new in there. And I can double tap to open this folder, and then I can double tap to access another thing. So basically, when I've got this voice running, this is called voiceover. Anything that I touch is spoken, and then I double tap anywhere on the screen after that's sort of been highlighted to perform that action. I also use Siri quite a lot to launch apps and that sort of thing, but I'm going to quickly...
Slide 5. The sky's the limit. 5 vertical bar ability.
Oh, sorry.
Ability net.
Oh, sorry, just wait a second.
Slide 7.
Okay.
7.
So it looks like a blank slide here, but I'm just going to open up.
720. With airplane mirroring. You selected. Headphones. Robin's laptop.
Okay.
7 vertical bar
Top.
ability net presentation
Mirroring.
dash next gen tech vertical bar March 2014.
Has that come up? Great. I don't think I need the audio. Let's see. Oh, I do need it. Okay. Great.
Airplane. Done. Button.
So
Control center. Airplane mode. Off.
I'm going to bring up an
Double tap to toggle setting.
I'm going to bring up an app called Talking Goggles, which you might be mistaken for thinking that a blind person, for example, one of the things on their phone that they wouldn't get much use out of is the camera. But actually, nothing could be further from the truth, because if you have a pair of eyes yourself that don't work, then to have a camera with some smarts behind it that is really useful is an absolute boon. So I'll just fire up this one called Talking Goggles. Open Talking Goggles.
Goggles. Flashes off. Button.
Okay, so I don't know what the lighting's like in here, but basically this is a mainstream app.
Hey, Robin, we can't see the app on the screen.
Okay,
Airplane.
Change language now.
so is anything coming up on the screen at all? It's just blue. Is the picture of the iPhone coming up or not? Okay, thanks. Let's try that again.
Home. Contacts. 720 control center. Torch. Airplay. Button. With airplay mirroring. You select Robin's laptop.
You can do it, come on.
Off. Mirroring. Robin's laptop. Headphones. Robin's laptop. Mirroring. Switch button. Airplay. Done. Button. Control center. Airplay mode. Off.
Is it still up there?
Double tap to toggle
Okay,
setting.
great. Okay.
My app switcher. Goggles. Running. Goggles.
Okay. So this is a mainstream app. It's designed to, when you go into the supermarket, for example, you can grab an item off the shelf and you can hold it underneath and it will tell you what it is. I've just grabbed a couple of sleeves from some... Oh, are you going to do that again? Let's try that again. I don't know if I've got it the right way up or anything here, but... Okay, let's try it. Okay, thanks. Well, I don't know if it matters, actually. Are you going to say something? Okay, let's try the other way around. I'm not sure if I've got the flash.
Change language. Flashes off.
Got
Button.
the flash off. Okay, let's try a different angle here. Oh, sorry. Let's try that. Are you going to say something? Okay, let's try something else. Sorry, I'll just put that there. Let's try something else. I've got my wife's Vaseline here. Let's try that.
Celine.
Oh, Celine, okay. Now, I've got no idea what the rotation on this is, so I don't think it matters. Are you going to say that again?
Vaseline Oato.
Vaseline Oato. Okay, but you get the idea. Now, this, I've got one more CD sleeve that I just grabbed. Let's see. Are you going to say something?
Fantastic 80s.
Fantastic 80s. Okay, so that's very, very useful for someone like myself who can't see. I'm going to get a volunteer.
Torch. Robin's laptop.
I'll turn that off.
Torch. Airplane. Done. Button. Selected. Robin. Done. Button. Selected. Robin's laptop. Headphones. Selected. Robin's laptop. Done. Done. Button. Control center. Airplane mode. Off.
Okay,
Double tap to toggle setting.
let's see if I just... So, Ethan, can I borrow you for a sec?
Barclays PMI-London July 8. Barclays PMI-London July 8.
thanks.
Items view multi-select list box. 1 next gen tech for every user. 2 of 16.
App switcher. Goggles. Running.
Okay. Thanks. So have we still...
We've still got a phone on the
Okay.
PowerPoint slideshow to desktop. Connecting ...
Let's see if I can just close that.
Task switching. Barclays PMI PowerPoint desktop. Connecting ... Connecting ...
Is that not just going to close it?
still there.
Okay.
Phone's still on the screen.
Select the system tray and reflector. 1. Context exit. 8. Leaving menus.
Okay, let's do it that way. Okay, great. So if I could ask you
Bottom blank. PowerPoint slideshow dash
to
left bracket
step
next gen
back
every user dash Barclays point.
and...
PowerPoint slideshow dash slide 7. 7 vertical. 7 vertical slide 7.
Oh, was that?
7 vertical bar ability net presentation dash next gen tech vertical bar March 2014.
Sorry.
Slide 8. 8 vertical bar ability net presentation dash next gen tech blank. Eiffel Tower.
Okay, great. So yeah, I was in London the other day and we pointed it at the gherkin and it could also Did you hear it say that?
Yeah.
Eiffel Tower, it said that. So you can point it to anything. I was in a row of shops the other day. I was not sure how far down the row I'd gone, and I pointed it at the shops, and it said I was outside Poundland. So if I go on to the next slide as well,
It can recognize text.
it can do OCR as well. So it can recognize text too. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Thanks a lot. So this is, I think, like a 99p app or something. It's by no means aimed at disabled people, but it's hugely useful for me. So it's aimed for people who are, looking at products, and you can tap on it to get more information about that product because you've got GPS on your phone. It can even tell you where you can buy it more cheaply around the corner, that sort of thing. But because it's done in an inclusive way, it's a project that they decided they were going to broaden it to be able to make it useful, to have it speaking out what it sees, for example, to be able to zoom in on what you're looking at, to make it more inclusive for a much broader audience. So
Barclays PMI -1, 2-word length -real.
I'm going to show one more app, a demonstration. I have got it on here, but this little video clip is a much more effective demonstration. This one, technology is always pretty magical, but I'm pretty much convinced that this one's actually powered on real life magic, because we've got, well, you'll see, it sort of turns in front of your eyes what you're looking at into text in a different language. So that I can talk over. So this is really obviously very useful, very convenient if you're in a foreign country, etc. And this app isn't aimed at disabled people per se, but if you've got a vision impairment, you can't look at small, phrase books, etc. English to French dictionary or whatever it might be, then this would be really, really useful for people with a cognitive impairment to be able to just point it and have the sort of design retained but changed to the different language. And to have that spoken back for me is really, really useful. I just close that. Now, ever since technology came along, people were sort of utilizing it. They were jumping on the fact that they could then use it in a certain way. And Kathryn and Daryl both talked about the messaging capability within the Barclays mobile app, and that is hugely empowering for people with a hearing impairment. And here's a quick video clip of the first time that FaceTime, which is the universal video calling capability, came out on the iPhone 4. As soon as it came out, people with a hearing impairment were using it to sign to each other, and this chap in a Texas Apple store was so kind of blown away that he quickly whipped out his phone and did a recording of them.
They're able to communicate very easily with the iPhone 4. They're able to talk to each other. Now, if that's not awesome, I don't know what is.
So the next clip I'm going to show you is somebody who is temporarily disabled. So they've got laryngitis, they've lost their voice. And when it comes to mobile computing, it's actually true that you are temporarily disabled because of the sort of extreme environments that you're accessing your device in on a daily basis. So someone like myself who needs speech output all the time, if you're in the car or if it's a really bright sunny day, you might gravitate towards apps or functionality like Siri, for example, that allows you to interact, with it speaking back to you. In a car, you're temporarily motor impaired as well because you can't, do lots of texting using the on-screen keyboard, so you might dictate, etc. So because of mobile computing, the idea of inclusive design or accessibility broadens it out to every single user. So Barclays absolutely did the right thing to look at their mobile apps and to make sure that they're inclusive, because actually that's not just catering for someone like myself. It's for anyone that's got fat fingers or broken their arm and they're having to use their non-dominant hand for 6 weeks, whatever it might be, or they're pushing a buggy one-handed, or it's a bright sunny day and they need good color contrast, etc. So we're all temporarily disabled on a daily basis when it comes to mobile computing. So let's watch the first part of this video clip. Someone's on a blind date and they're using this communication software because they're temporarily disabled. I won't play the whole thing because of time, but also because it gets a bit saucy later on.
Hey, I'm sorry I was late. Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. Parking was crazy. I haven't been here before, but
That's okay. It's nice to finally meet you.
It's good to meet you. That came out of your iPhone.
Yeah, I have laryngitis, so I will be communicating through my new iVoice application. I programmed all of my responses for the night.
Okay, you mean you're writing it down somehow and it's reading it back to me?
No, all my responses are pre-programmed for tonight.
So you know everything I'm going to say tonight?
Well, I know how I'm going to respond to everything you are going to say tonight.
Okay then, what's my favorite color?
I don't know what your favorite color is, silly.
But you knew I was going to say, what's my favorite color?
I knew I was going to respond. I don't know what your favorite color is, silly.
Well, it's blue, in case you were wondering.
Oh, my brother's favorite color is blue too.
Okay, hold on. If you knew your brother's favorite color was blue too, then you would know my favorite color is blue when I asked you what's my favorite color moments ago. Because I'm the two. I'm the two in that statement you made.
I have to go to the bathroom.
I'll just leave it there. So yeah, have a look at that one. I will tweet the links to everything straight after we've done here tonight. So the next kind of a big advance after mobile is obviously wearables, and it had a bit of a faltering start, but there are dozens, literally dozens of, Google Glass clones, for example, and now that Glass has a published GDK, the Glass Developer Kit, then lots of apps are coming out for Glass. Let's watch a quick first part of this video clip for anyone that isn't kind of familiar with how Glass works.
Yeah. Meet me in front of Strand Books at 2. Oh man, really?
I'll just pause it there. So that was the kind of promo video before Glass really hit people's faces. But a lot of what it's promised there has actually come to pass. So here's a quick video clip of Nav, which was one of the recent apps that have been developed with the GDK, and it's that sort of augmented reality that we saw there, where in this case, people who are out and about, walking, driving, etc., the heads-up display would be providing you with the turn-by-turn directions, information, etc., so that it's always looking wherever you're looking.
Hey, I'm Sophia. I'm a product manager in Glass. I'm going to show you how to navigate while walking.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm on the Glass marketing team, and we use Nav to get to family activities.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm on the Glass team, and I love to use Glass for navigating while I'm cycling.
Okay, let's get directions. Okay, Glass. Get directions to sushi. Okay, there's Sona Sushi on Castro. Shortest possible walking distance. I like sushi, Tommy. All right, lead the way. Hold on. It's this one. All right. It looks like it's about 2 blocks away. Okay, Glass. Get directions to park. There's a nearby one. It's called Sierra Vista. we're going to go right here, and then at the light, you want to make a left.
Okay, Glass, get directions to Paradise Beach County Park.
I'll just mute it. So, you know, what we're seeing there is obviously very convenient for people to be able to help them get around. You don't have to hold your phone out in front of you or plop it on the dashboard. And for people with cognitive difficulties, etc., it's really, you know, it's a game changer for them to be able to have that information, that awareness, that augmented reality kind of layered on top of what they're looking at. For me, I'm very excited about Glass because this, you know, the app that I showed you a moment ago, I have to get my phone out of my pocket, I have to point it, but whereas if I'm wearing something on my face that's always looking where I'm looking, then that extra level of smartness is always available to me sort of real time. So, and because it's a project that has been done in an inclusive way, I wouldn't use the heads-up display, I would be using the bone conducting microphone that's just behind your ear, that is nice and clear. For people who, you know, have a vision impairment, for example. So it's all about choices, and, you know, the technical term is redundancy. So there are lots of sort of different choices, different ways, different input and output methodologies, which makes these products, these projects, much more inclusive than they otherwise would be.
Barclays PMI 7 facial expression left.
Here's a quick video clip of some software that uses the camera in Glass for emotion recognition. So actually this software is much better than normal people for recognizing facial expressions, but obviously for people with Asperger's or autism who would find it really difficult, or someone like myself who can't see what people's expressions are like, that would be hugely useful. You could have it up on the heads-up display saying, you know, annoyed, angry, happy, etc. And I would have it spoken back to me. So yeah, this software, apparently it's 87% accurate at guessing, you know, even micro emotions compared to mere mortals that only get it right 65% of the time. So this potential for wearable technology to augment people's lives, there's absolutely huge potential. Facebook, here's a quick news clip about the acquisition of Deep Face, which is facial recognition technology, which doesn't require the face to be orientated in the same way. It can kind of get it from different angles here and still recognize it. So let's watch a quick clip of that.
Facebook's newest technology is going face-to-face with, well, your face. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Dimbert for Buzz60. Facebook developed a program called Deep Face, which researchers say can determine whether two photographed faces are the same person with about 97% accuracy. The site already has facial recognition software that can suggest friends to tag when uploading a photo, but those results aren't nearly as precise. Deep Face uses a complex algorithm that combines 2D and 3D face alignment along with intermittent forms of data. For example, the developers successfully recognized this photo as actor Sylvester Stallone. For now, it's just a research project, so don't worry about those unflattering photos you untagged popping up anytime soon. This isn't just about automatic picture tagging to save time uploading 200 spring break photos. Accurate facial recognition software could lead to more personalized ads. And let's face it, that's pretty much the only thing that matters to a company that just went public. Buzz60, now you know, pass it on.
So really, really useful for people with a vision impairment, for example, or who have face dysphasia. I can't remember the medical term for people who are unable to recognize people's faces. But obviously the vulnerable, if you're bedbound, for example, you could have a sort of a peephole Wi-Fi enabled webcam which you can get that you put into the security hole in your front door. And running this sort of software, you can be told whether the people that are coming up your garden path are people that you know. You can use the previous software to tell whether they're angry, for example. And obviously in sort of branches, there is the potential, or two-factor authentication, face recognition. There's lots of potential for, you know, sort of commercial applications as well. You could even take it one step further and use it to actually tell you whether someone who you're looking at has got a criminal record.
A new company called Hyperlayer is developing an app for Google Glass that will use facial recognition software to identify anybody with a criminal record who happens to walk past you on the street or in a store. Here is a promotional video demonstrating the software in action.
I'll just pause it there. So Yeah, very, very interesting. Now, obviously, you'd need to have access to a database of people with a criminal record, or alternatively, you know, for the vulnerable people, perhaps that would be provided by the local police authority, or if you had known, you know, it's about facial recognition, really, and what sort of a database you want to use, and the application that you want to put it to.
Barclays PM, 10 introducing 1944.
How long have I got? Just a few minutes, or 4 minutes? Okay,
10
thanks.
introducing mentor dash developer.
I'll skip over.
Autonomous vehicles stat. 12 elect.
I'm going to show. I'm just going to sort of skip over, and I'm really sorry about sort of running short here. I will send around links to all of the videos.
12 elect in action dash.
But a couple of weeks ago when the World Cup started, you might not have seen it, but right over to the side in the World Cup opening ceremony, there was somebody in a full-body exoskeleton suit who kicked the ball. It was like a half a second shot sort of thing. So I've got a slightly longer clip here. You may remember Claire Lomas, who was walking the London Marathon, and I'll just show a quick clip of her.
Although the finish line has long been cleared away and the crowds have dispersed, Claire Lomas is still walking the London Marathon. Paralysed from the waist down after a horse riding accident, she's making her way around the course with the help of a bionic suit.
Crossing the roads make it so much more difficult.
I'll just mute it there. So this is just to illustrate that technology, you know, we talked about mobile, and you can't get more mobile than autonomous vehicles, which I've had to skip over and apologise there, or in this case, a bionic exoskeleton. And all of this technology is being leveraged by people with different disabilities. This and many of the other technologies like heads-up displays, augmented reality, autonomous vehicles are all having a military origin. They're all, you know, developed by DARPA over in the States, but they're all being put to extremely good use by people with different disabilities. So if your projects, they may not have a unique or an overt disability angle, you might not even know that any of your B2B customers, for example, have a disability, but if you think about making it inclusive, then you will be, you know, uniquely placed amongst your peers to make sure that your product will be the one that they will choose. Show a quick video clip of somebody who, this lady is completely paralysed, and she's able to, with a brain interface, control a robotic arm to be able to do daily activities like drinking a cup of coffee.
You're watching the most advanced brain-machine interface in action. Kathy Hutchinson is paralysed and unable to speak, but just by thinking, she's able to control the movements of this robotic arm and drink her morning coffee. She's part of a pioneering study run by researchers at Brown University in the US.
People who are paralyzed have their brain disconnected from their body, so they're not able to go out and do everyday things that you and I can do, like reach for a glass of water or scratch your nose. And I think many of us don't realize how debilitating it is, especially for people who have the severest forms of paralysis, that's called tetraplegia, where they can't move their arms and legs because there's been damage to the spinal cord or a stroke that's cut the pathway from the brain to the spinal cord. So our idea is to bypass that damaged nervous system and go directly from the brain to the outside world, so the brain signals can not control muscles but control machines or devices like a computer or a robotic limb.
The trial is called BrainGate. The team announced their first success in 2006. Matt Nagel was left paralysed in all 4 limbs after he was stabbed, but using the BrainGate system, he could control a cursor on a computer screen with his thoughts.
I'm going to open the first email, which says congrats. It says you are doing a great job. Next, I'm going to open the second email, which states, hi there. It says, hi, we'll talk soon. Now I'm going to the exit. Next, I'm going to paint a circle.
This kind of brain-machine system has been tested before in monkeys. The BrainGate studies show that it works in humans too. So how exactly does it work?
There are 3 main components to any brain-machine interface or brain-computer interface. There's a sensor, there's a decoder, and there's a assistive technology.
The sensor is a tiny array of electrodes connected to a bundle of gold wires. It's implanted in the patient's motor cortex, the part of the brain that commands body movements. The brain activity recorded by the sensor is relayed to a computer, the decoder, and that then instructs the assistive technology. A cursor is one thing, but an arm is quite another.
There's really a big challenge in moving a cursor on a screen, which sort of slides around in just two dimensions really on a flat surface, to controlling something as sophisticated as a robotic arm that has a hand and an elbow and a shoulder and can virtually move around anywhere.
To design the arm, the BrainGate team worked with robotics experts in the US and Germany. One big challenge, because no one wants a clumsy robot, was to make it react to its environment. So when it collides with a target, the bottle, it grabs it. But when there's an unexpected collision, it stops moving and enters safety mode. Eventually, the researchers hope to build an arm that works as smoothly as a real one and can cope with more complicated tasks like brushing teeth. They'd also like to make a wireless version, so the device doesn't need to be plugged directly into the patient's head. But for now, they're celebrating their progress with Kathy.
All of us were standing in awe, more or less, because we were watching her drinking the coffee, and it was really such a stunning scene.
That was a special moment for all of us. It was a magic moment. In the nearly 15 years before that event, every time she wanted to take a drink of something, a caregiver would need to place the cup or the bottle into a holder that would be placed near her wheelchair, position that bottle just right. To see her with that robotic arm reach out and pick up that cup of coffee and serve herself that coffee for the first time in nearly 15 years, it was an incredible moment.
This technology is absolutely changing people's lives. I'm going to quickly show this and speak over it, if that's okay. So what we've got here, you might think, well, why am I showing a video clip of somebody jumping out of a balloon? So this is Felix Baumgartner, and he recently tried to break 2 world records for the highest freefall jump, and he achieved that one because he took this balloon up to the edge of space, nearly 25 miles up. And he also wanted to get the longest free fall before he opened his parachute. Now, he had a fancy heads-up display, a bit like Google Glass. He had a visor that told him all his instrumentation, his velocity, his altitude, orientation, all that sort of thing. And as soon as he jumped off, his visor completely misted up and he couldn't see any of his controls at all, any of his instrumentation, so he was completely blind. And this is an example of a project where inclusion hadn't been thought through, that redundancy hadn't been built in, those options, those choices. So an example of inclusion would be where that instrumentation, that heads-up display, had a fallback position that it would be spoken to him, or perhaps there would be haptic feedback every 1,000 feet. There would be a vibration so that he would know what his altitude was, etc. But because he didn't have this redundancy, he had no idea where he was. So we did what any of us would have done, which is to pull the cord pretty sharpish as he was plummeting to earth without knowing when he was going to go splat. And so he got the highest free fall, but he didn't get the longest, not by a long way, because he pulled his parachute cord a lot sooner than he was planning to. So that's an example of where a project, digital technology has the unique capability of being potentially inclusive if you do things in the right way, for very little extra cost, if any at all. You just have to think about it from the start. And if they'd have done that, this was literally probably a life and death situation because inclusion hadn't been sort of thought through. So I'll just finish off with a slide about, is that coming up? So sorry about the technical glitches as we've gone through, and sorry that I've had to skip over things. Time flies, so sorry about that. I will send around all of those links. I'll just finish off by, on a personal note, I mentioned right at the beginning that technology has played a massive part in my life, and as it has done in so many other people's as well. It came around at just the right time for me to get me through my education, and created a charity like AbilityNet that helps people through technology. And if it wasn't for technology, I wouldn't have got my education, and I probably wouldn't be working at all. 70% of people with a vision impairment, for example, in the UK are still out of work. So I feel hugely humbled that technology came along at the right time. I'm very, very grateful. And I work at AbilityNet in the Warwick office in the Midlands, and if I hadn't moved to Warwick with my work, then I wouldn't have met my wife, and I wouldn't have my 2 gorgeous children. So you could say that I owe everything to the technology. Sorry. Thank you.
Brilliant. Follow me. Follow me.
All right, thank you very much, Robin. Very informative, touching, and really great presentation. I was just checking the Twitter feeds, and a lot of good comments and feedback and photos on there as well. So take a look again, and please tweet us, Barclays PMI. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the panel session. So this is where I asked you at the beginning to think about some questions. You guys have seen some really great presentations from Kathryn and Robin today. And I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so we'd love to hear from you. Keith is going to run the roving mic, so any questions is fair game. So we need that mic. Oh, we need the mic. Yeah. Thanks. All right.
Hello, check.
He'll be asking you questions.
Hi.
Come on, where are we looking?
It was a really fascinating session, so thank you for that. It was quite an eye-opener in terms of accessibility, so that's great. As part of my business, I'm developing a website which will be used by the patients, and they may have some various forms of accessibility issues, whether it's deaf or deafness or blindness or semi-blindness. So is there a accreditation wherein you can get your website accredited for accessibility? Yeah, okay, this website is accredited as or is there any guideline that I can use to ensure that it is accessible to 50% or 100% of disabilities?
Shall I answer that one? Yeah. Absolutely, there is. Yes, there's some world standards called the Web Accessibility Guidelines, and those are the ones that you need to look at. And by all means, I can give you my card at the end, or you can just follow at AbilityNet, and we can put you in touch with what those are. But you can just Google Web Accessibility Guidelines. It is a legal requirement. You have to get to AA, which is the sort of middle standard, and it's not a walk in the park. There are issues with it, which is why organisations like Barclays have come to AbilityNet to make sure that they navigate their way through all of the tweaks that you have to make sure that it's as inclusive as it can be. For particularly for a project like yours, where it's got a sort of a medical user base, or a user base which might potentially have medical conditions, then you really need to be thinking about making it as broad as possible. And you could aim for AAA, which would make your site a sort of Rolls-Royce haven of accessibility amongst what is still a very inaccessible internet for your customers, and they would thank you for it. So yeah, more than happy to kind of talk about it in more detail afterwards.
A question for Barclays on the inclusion and accessibility journey from the project management perspective. Would you like to share a couple of recent challenges that you came across, and how did you overcome those challenges?
I can provide some insight. Maybe Darryl wants to think of an example as well. I mean, the challenges are kind of on the micro and the macro level, because you've got the challenge of working in an organisation that's this size. I mean, at any one point in the retail bank alone, there are 500 change projects going on. There's 3 of me in my team. And we're trying to work on the transformational stuff as well. As I said, my background is design manager in the construction sense, and now living in accessibility. Actually, what I would love is that we had design managers, no matter what type of project you're working on, who can help the project managers find the right solution. But, that's a bit far from where we are at the moment. So the challenges are enlightening people, which is an ongoing one, trying to raise awareness about what we're doing. The benefits we've had and the successes in trying to reach more people is around standards and governance. So I've got some copies of the inclusive design standard that I can share with you, and they are really high level. There's nothing rocket science in what we launched a couple of years ago, but people are coming to this without knowing anything, so trying to make it really simple, really digestible, signposting them where to go next, whether it's internal or external. So education is one challenge, and as I said, like, project managers will always say, well, I can't afford it, my project's going to be over budget. So it's trying to help identify even one area that you can tackle that's got probably the biggest risk around it, and going after that. It just, they might find it a bit overwhelming to think that they've got to do a million and one things. So if you can just pick one and get that exec buy-in as well. So a couple of things there that I would recommend. Any thoughts?
Yeah, Kat, I think it's a good question. I think from my perspective, in a delivery capacity, you know, our stakeholders are always hungry for delivering quicker. You know, we worked on a program a couple of years ago now where we refreshed the look and feel of the retail online bank. So those of you who are Barclays customers, you would have seen an old-looking website probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and we refreshed that. And when we did that, we took we wanted to make it completely accessible. We went and partnered up with the Royal National Institute of the Blind and had them do testing on it, things like that. And when we did testing with RNIB, it uncovered a number of issues that we wanted to make sure that we sorted before we went live. That took more time. It took more testing. It took a little bit more time to sort out. Our stakeholders wanted to deploy it as soon as possible because of the mass market. It solved the issue for the mass market, but we did the right thing and waited until all those issues were resolved. And so it's a balance for us because we are very much pressured, especially in a change delivery capacity, to deliver as quick as possible. But as Kathryn mentioned, there is pros and cons, and you got to do it at the very beginning, get those requirements in early. But it's always going to be a balance and negotiating with your stakeholders. But if you have sponsorship from the top, like what we do here at Barclays, it's really important. I mean, I guess it's easier to push back, but of course that same sponsor is pushing us to go quicker.
So, in your opinion, Robin, what is the progress in the projects at Barclays so far regarding accessibility?
Well, as I said earlier, we've been working with you guys for, I think it was since 2005. And that was originally with Barclay Card and on their talking two-factor authentication devices, their DDA models as they were back then. Of course, it's the Equality Act now. And so you were market leaders right from, you know, way back then. And since then, helping with the website, with the intranet, with the mobile apps. So progress, I mean, there's no doubt whatsoever that Barclays are leading in this area. And I'm not a Barclays customer, but that's purely historical. I haven't got around to changing. But to be honest, I can't do online banking. I cannot do online banking with the worst app or website. So, you know, there's huge, I mean, I should be changing over just on a matter of principle. But so, you know, there's no doubt whatsoever that the investment, the time, the energy, the commitment pays off in spades. And there's a project, gift card project coming up next month that we're involved in as well that we're really excited about. So yeah, many and various areas, projects large and small, have all been deployed, conceived and sort of developed and deployed in a very inclusive way. Everything is a journey, so there are still lots of areas. And one thing that AbilityNet does is come into an organization and look at their whole e-estate, as we call it, which is to look at everything, all of their comms, all of their applications, their intranet, their customer-facing channels, and kind of do a traffic light initially to see which things they need to sort of, which are the most sort of fundamentally challenging for certain customers, and to maybe prioritize on those. So there'll always be a mixed picture, and even when a website, for example, has been made accessible in a refresh on day one, there's then the sort of maintenance of that, because every time somebody updates a page on that site, there is the potential for it to slip a little bit. So any project, whether it's just updating a web page or refreshing a whole website, you know, if those best practices are ingrained, are sort of woven into everything that you do, then you know, you'll be able to maintain that level and get, you know, the customer satisfaction and buy-in that has been well earned as a result.
Hi, thanks very much. Robin, I'm interested to hear about which, if any, application you find the most useful, just from your experience.
Mobile apps?
Yeah, mobile apps, yeah.
I mean, I showed you talking goggles, which is I use every day. And there's other ones like Flexi, for example, which is a keyboard that I could show you where you guys, I mean, it's not a disability, you know, specific app. It's just an alternative keyboard, and it's available in Android, where third-party keyboards have always been an option. In iOS 8 coming out in a couple of months, they are allowing third-party keyboards finally. So you could use Flexi, and basically you could close your eyes and you could type, which is what I have. You know, I'm basically not able to see what I'm doing, but all it does is it pattern matches, so it looks at the shape of the word that you tried to type, and it tries to match that to known words. So you don't need to get anywhere near the right letters, as long as the pattern is vaguely the right shape for the word, you know, demonstration or whatever it might be, then you'll get the word right. So that, you know, that's another one that I use all the time. I use GPS apps all the time to know where I am and to get around. I use productivity apps, you know, the full range of productivity apps that other people use, except for Office on iPad or mobile Office, because they're not accessible. So not able to use those at the moment. Microsoft have a very long history, and if it wasn't for desktop Office and Windows itself being accessible, you know, I would have lost out, definitely. But yeah, they've slipped up there. So the biggies can flop on projects as well.
Any other questions? Well, mine was just a follow-up on actually both of those questions. Regarding your question to Barclays, have you seen an increase of users like disability or disabled users moving over to Barclays because of that? I mean, I'm just wondering about the increase of traffic that you've seen because of this program.
Definitely, anecdotally, yes. Obviously, when you're onboarding customers, we don't take that kind of information. Why did you join us? On what basis? But anecdotally, yes. We see people reaching out, engaging with us via social media, and writing in to say that they've seen what we're doing in this space. And it's thanks to partnerships with people like the Business Disability Forum, the BDF, a great organisation, been around for 20 years. Barclays were a founding partner, where you can take part in their benchmark and see where you're sort of working in relation to your peers, but actually obviously then that helps publicise those businesses that are doing it quite well, and people who really need this will look out for that. And there's a big dialogue going on within communities around who's good in the market and who's not so good. So it's great to be part of that, but we wouldn't necessarily have the metrics to back up who's actually come through the door. But we know that, you know, with things like talking ATMs, we actually were the first to sign up to the RNIB's Make Money Talk campaign, but in doing that, actually that raised the bar, made all the rest of the banks come on board as well, because we'd pushed that, so it had a greater impact on society. But a lot of people did initially just use us on that basis, even if it was just an ATM. So I would imagine, and hopefully we'll get Robin to open an account by the end of the day.
Just to add to that, though, as well as the good PR, because, you know, you get a lot of press coverage when you do these sort of things, and the talking ATMs and that sort of thing as well. And so I would imagine that would, you know, make the average customer more well disposed to Barclays as well. And perhaps, you know, if you do see an increase, it might not only be the disabled people who were you know, previously struggling. It might be the sort of broader take up as well. But and I've forgotten what my second point was now. Oh yes, that's right. And the other thing as well as getting the ROI, you're actually avoiding litigation. And, you know, we're not litigious like they are in the States by half, but we are to a certain extent, and it is a legal requirement. And just because there aren't high-profile cases like Target, for example, over there, it doesn't mean that there isn't stuff going on. And there are, you know, very hefty out-of-court settlements going on over here that the RNIB are championing. We're sort of more, we're stepping back from that sort of thing. We don't do sort of class actions against different organisations, but we know that there are a lot going on, and I've been an expert witness in a case, and you know, they are settling out of court. There's no PR, there's no publicity, because part of the settlement agreement is that there should be no publicity. So don't think that because there aren't these high-profile cases that you aren't potentially up for litigation and quite significant financial penalty as a result.
Just to add one thing to that, actually. RBS was involved in a suit a couple of years ago. You may remember, I can't remember the customer's name, who was served on the street because he couldn't actually, he was a wheelchair user, couldn't get service inside of his local branch, and that nearly set precedent in case law. And so people are really looking to take organisations, especially big ones, as all the way to get case law in this area. And I forgot my other point now, it's contagious. But the thing with the Equality Act as well that's different to the Disability Discrimination Act is that it puts the onus on being proactive. You can't wait and be reactive in these circumstances and go, oh, we didn't know. The onus is on the organisation to actually anticipate, that's the key word, any issues. So you can't wait to just be told off on these things. We do have to look out for what the opportunities and issues are. Any other questions? Oh, we've got one more here. Last one.
Hi there. It was a great session, very inspiring, I must say. I'm just curious to hear about how Barclays team conducted the UAT and testing with accessibility. Like, did you take advantage of this suit?
Not formally, so that's kind of a winning hearts and minds piece. The specific testing we would only use with real people who have disabilities. So internally, we've got a disability employee network, and you can get involved with that whether you're interested in disability or not. But the people who are willing and able and have disabilities themselves, we've created a user testing group. So no matter what your role in Barclays, you can be part of this group and get a chance to kick the tires on projects. Great resource, obviously free as well, and we do that as often early stages on projects, or even just float ideas with them. You know, how does this sound? The deaf colleagues that I work with, I've got them involved in the instant messaging program, which is great, and then we go through to customer testing. So we use real panels of customers to get their insight. There's no substitute for getting that real insight, and it's not something that we would replicate through suits and things. That's great for the project teams, but you do need to engage with real people.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're almost done for the night. So just a couple moments, we're going to bring up Edmund, who's going to talk a little bit about the PMI UK chapter and some of the events to come.
Good evening, everyone. We have Toastmasters tomorrow at 6:30 at Oldgate. Please do come in. And if you're interested, please send us a mail, and please do drop in. It's a beautiful place at Oldgate. Next event, we have on 30th July, Thomson Reuters, Chris Roebuck. He spoke on PMI Congress in Dubai, and it's a brilliant presentation. And we have Dale Carnegie doing Power of Persuasion, enhancing your influence and impact. It's on 18th September. Another event will be coming up. We are yet to finalize. That's on September 3rd. And in Farnborough, it's 9th July. That's tomorrow. We have Gary Palmer, Critical Consulting and Critical Change Project Management. And Cardiff, we have PMI Summer School of Conference. That's in Cardiff. And 4th September, Glasgow, again, Barclays, topic here to be finalized. Please do look up our website for future events. And this is it. What's new, what's old, and what works? Synergy. Please book your tickets as early as possible. Brilliant lineup this time. We have Dr. James Brown, who is a NASA scientist, and we had a huge response last year, and he's back again. Please do come in, and you can earn lots of videos. Held at Central Hall, Westminster. Brilliant venue. Yep. And we have volunteer opportunities for a website events manager. We are planning an inclusive design now. What the major outcome from this Barclays event was, I was pointed out that we don't have disability column in our registration. So I had to go back to my board and ask, we had it done now. Now we are well with asking details about the accessibility. So there's a major change for us. Thank you, Barclays, again. And please note down the PDU. If you have any issues, please let us know. Anyway, we'll send out this PDU slide on our email feed for the feedback. Sorry. Yes, the brilliant part, drinks and networking. Thank you very much.